Alright, so if you guys are unaware, it looks like ProJared has made a comeback, and with a 40 something minute video, which is long as hell. And guess what? I watched the whole thing, and I'm sure probably a good amount of you watching this video watched the whole thing. But in case you didn't, for obvious reasons, I mean, it is a pretty lengthy video, and some people are just really not all that interested in really, watching the whole, argument of ProJared, considering that ProJared has a very controversial, image right now. So I could see why. I'm not the type of person to do that, so I gave him the chance and I watched his entire video. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. If for the people who are not interested in watching the entire thing, I'll give like a kind of like a very quick, rundown of what happened in that video. ProJared basically just sort of goes through different accusations that he has received throughout the controversy. He kind of just sort of goes and explains each one by one. Some weaker than others, but some very strong in his favor. So I kind of like talk about the ones that I find to be the most interesting. For instance, the two most popular, I guess, problems that people had with ProJared during the whole controversy, right, was that he was sending underage girls nude photos, which I don't think I need to explain why that would be a bad thing. And the whole cheating on his wife, or ex-wife now, Heidi. And Heidi did have a response to this, which I will get to in a bit, but I just want to, kind of point on Jared's response first. Considering those are the two major topics, those are the two I'm the most interested in. There was some other thing with a girl talking about how rude he was or something, and I'll get to that as well. But for the, I would say that the most important one is basically, did he send underage girls, or not even underage girls, like underage people in general, like boys and girls, did he send them, like, photos like that? And from what it looks like, it doesn't look like that. I mean, there were two people who basically put that accusations out there. These two dudes, both named Charlie. One of them called himself Chai. So just like Jared did in his video, I'll refer to him as Chai. And basically, these two were the sole people, or kind of like the people who began that whole idea that he was sending underage people nudes, underage kids. One of them is not very conclusive in his response, because basically the idea is that it's a he said, she said type of situation, where Jared says that this never happened, Charlie says it never happened, but neither of them have any sort of evidence in any capacity. So the way I look at it, it's kind of just inconclusive, because it's just his word versus his word, and there's really nothing there. However, the other one, the other Charlie, right? I think this one would be Chai. Yeah, that looks pretty bad on Chai's part. The reason for that is because he pretty much, saved a screenshot, right? And put a caption above that screenshot saying that, Jared knew that he was underage. But then in the actual screenshot itself, they're talking very, provocatively. But there isn't really any indication that Jared had asked, or he knew, or anything like that. It was kind of just like a very provocative conversation for the most part. When you look at Jared's video, he remembers talking to that person, which is different from the other Charlie. And not only does he remember that, he has his own screenshots where he shows that not only did he ask ahead of time, if he was of age, Chai, he responded and lied and said that he was an adult. He was 18. Which, okay, future reference, if you see someone who looks like a child, who might be a child, and they say they're 18, that's like the ultimate lie. Like, to me, that's too suspicious, I don't know. But at the same time, I've also seen some people say, like, why didn't Jared ask for his ID? And I think, I'm just imagining in my head, in what instance, other than, some kind of occupation, or maybe you're a bouncer for a club or something, what instance do you typically ask someone for their ID? It's very rare, like in a social setting anyways, right? Like if you own a store, maybe you sell alcohol, right? In that situation you would ask for ID, right? Same thing for clubs and that kind of thing, right? Or bars. But It's very rare that in a social setting, if I'm talking to someone, that I ask for their ID, especially if I meet them online. It's I don't know. I'm not really sure. But then again, I'm not a very social person, so maybe you guys can kind of answer that on your own if that's something that you commonly ask friends or people that you meet in a social setting. But I guess that's the way I look at it, so I don't know. But still, regardless of the fact that there are screenshots that support Jared's point of view and, you know, defense when it comes to this. So I think in this case, it's a little more believable on his end. I don't know. That seems a little weird on Chai's part. I would say that Chai is probably somebody who just saw the controversy with ProJared's like divorce or like his cheating affair or whatever the case may be, and saw that as a time to dogpile on him and make these claims, knowing that he has spoken to him in a sexual manner before when he was underage. Just he wasn't completely honest in his part in that whole situation. Does this mean that Jared is completely innocent? No, he still did end up talking to an underage person, but neither did he never sent anything to this person, by the way. That's one thing. He sent nudes to other people, but not to underage children. At least that's what it seems like. And I'm sure if there's someone out there who knows that he has, you know, then unfortunately he's a dick, right? But I don't know. I haven't seen anything about him talking to an underage person. Maybe he sent something to another adult, and if that's the case, that's not exactly the same thing, but you get what I'm trying to say. I guess the whole Chai situation, it kind of just shows to me that while he's not exactly innocent because he still did end up talking to this underage person, because that person wasn't necessarily honest in his, in answering his question, I don't think ProJared is necessarily fully to blame in this situation. It feels like this is more of a situation of someone lying and taking that lie and taking advantage of someone because of it. I don't know. I guess that's how I look at it. I don't know for sure, so I apologize if anyone's getting pissed off at me because of this, you know, raw opinion on the situation, but that's just what it seems like. And of course, if new information comes to me and I see it and it provides evidence and gives me a different perspective, then yes, I will see it that way as well. But that's just how it looks right now, so that's all I can really say about it. And then there was whole thing with this cosplayer girl. Apparently she said that Jared was kind of like looking up photos of her nude and showing it off to his friends, and Jared kind of says that he thinks that this is a misunderstanding because apparently what happened was that he had found out from a friend after meeting her for the first time that this girl was a cosplayer, and because of his relationship with Heidi, who was also a cosplayer, he decided to look her up, saw her Bayonetta cosplay for when she was promoting Bayonetta for the Wii U, and, you know, kind of showed it off excited, saying like, oh, she's really good or something. If that's the case, then it seems like that's a massive exaggeration on one part. Like, if, again, because this is going off of his word, right? So we can't 100% believe it. It seems like that's something that is a massive exaggeration of a reaction from one side. Because if you cosplay as a character and someone's excited about that character and shows you off to other people who would also be interested in that cosplay, then I don't really see that as, you know, someone showing your nudes around. Like, I don't really think that's the same thing. But again, it could also be a matter of, you know, ProJared kind of just, what's the word? Lying? If he's lying, then he's lying, and again, another dick move from ProJared. But if he's telling the truth, then yeah, it seems like a massive exaggeration. But the last important thing I would say is what happened between him and Heidi. Right, so according to him, and Heidi did, some of the things Heidi said on Twitter prior to this does kind of go in line with what Jared's saying, so I think there is some truth to it, even if maybe it's some half-truths, who knows. But apparently he has been trying to get a divorce from Heidi since, I believe he said late 2018 or so, and she refused. She didn't really want to get a divorce or, you know, split in any capacity, right? And he shows kind of like evidence to an extent, screenshots of himself talking to like professionals in the matter. I don't know if that means like therapists or if that means like lawyers or marriage counselors or something. I don't really know. But he says he talked to some kind of professionals about that whole thing and that whole ordeal as a whole. And because of that, he was trying to split for some time. And I'm not quite sure where Holly comes in this whole timeline. I'm sure there's people on Twitter and like all these different platforms who are taking like a timeline of everything that's happened and kind of like understanding like exactly to a T. But when did Holly come in exactly? Because it kind of depends when you guys split. Because if you guys split and then you ended up with Holly, then I could see that as maybe looking a little insensitive, but not necessarily wrong. And in the same vein, if you started with Holly while still with Heidi, then yeah, it looks worse. But it's kind of, this is like a gray area, I think. I feel like some people are gonna look at this and say, well, he wasn't really with her. She just wouldn't let him leave, right? She wouldn't accept that he was trying to leave, and then, you know, him with Holly is just something that he wanted. That's something he wanted for himself, right? Does that make it okay? Not really. But I could see why some people would feel like, because I guess his heart wasn't in the relationship and he tried to be respectful and leave, that some people might justify it with that, right? I honestly don't know. I'm not really someone who would do that personally. Typically, like, even if someone refuses to accept the decision, I would still leave, if that makes sense. Like, I would still, like, physically get out of the location of this whole thing and go through the business that I would have to in order to get it to happen. Maybe they were in that process. I don't know. There's not a lot of information going around about that in Jared's video, because apparently Jared said he can't say too much because of legal reasons. So it sounds like things are going on behind the scenes in terms of taking care of things. So it's kind of hard to say. I'm not really sure what's going on there. From what it sounds like, there seems to be like a bit of a weird timing issue with it. Like, Jared wanted to leave, Heidi said no, but then Heidi claims that he was the one that wouldn't let her leave, and he was doing all these things behind her back with Holly and blah, 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 blah. But there was a specific thing I mentioned, and that was Heidi's response to this video, right? So there's always one thing I always believed in, right? Is that no matter how fucked up something is, the other person should be able to respond, right? I believe that, like, that open communication is what's important to finding out the truth behind a situation and getting to the, I guess, correct justice, if that makes sense. That sounds kind of self-righteous, but it's not. It's not really that deep, I don't think. It's just kind of like, information is important when it comes to these kind of situations, you know? So I did want to look at Heidi's response and see if Heidi's response and what she says about, you know, what the things that Jared say in his video was something that I, you know, would feel makes sense, right? But that's as long as, you know, both sides are totally open to understanding that and looking into the other perspective. So I found this tweet on Heidi's Twitter. It says, quote, "And yes, I did not watch the video. His performance, voice, and face trigger me now. I spent months trying to talk to him while he stonewalled me. No point trying anymore." Well then, I could understand being sensitive and not being able to handle, you know, seeing a face like that again, right? I can understand that. But there's been so many times on Twitter where you've talked about being strong and that you'll be fine. But now, when he makes this big 40-minute or so response video, now's the time you're not strong enough to respond and watch and know what he's saying. And you made this very long response talking about why everything he said is wrong. But at the end of that, you say that you didn't even watch it. So you don't really know what he said. Unless someone just told you what it is. And even then, like, some people can get information slightly off all the time. So you didn't bother watching it. You didn't bother hearing out the other side of the conversation. Of the argument. So to me, as someone from the outside looking in, that looks really bad on you. Really bad. And the reason why is because if I have two people or I guess two exes, I guess, right? And they're telling me about how one person did not listen to the other and would instead gaslight each other, because that's basically their claims. If one person's willing to hear out the other one and respond, but the other one refuses to listen to it and tell them that they're wrong anyways, who looks like that gaslighting here? And with that, I can't respect that. That's dumb. And that only makes it look like even if you are the victim in this, I can't help but feel that kind of response or that kind of just way of dealing with it is not good for your image. And I'm not saying your image is important. Your health is important, so make sure you take care of yourselves. Everyone watching this video and everyone involved in the whole situation. But I'm just saying that if you're trying to put your experience out there and be someone who's like almost like this advocate for, you know, taking care of yourself and making sure people don't gaslight you and take care of yourself and all that good stuff, it's, I don't know, it just seems like a bad move for publicity's sake. I'm not an expert on that. I'm obviously not, you know, a super world famous YouTuber or cosplayer or something like that, right? So maybe they know something I don't. I'm not a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever you call professionals in this kind of thing. So maybe what I'm saying is completely off base, and if that's the case, then fine. But I don't like that. I really don't, and I feel like that just makes you look worse in the situation. But that's kind of all I have time for you guys. I'm not trying to make a video as long as ProJared's. So I guess just let me know how you guys feel about the situation. It's kind of stupid, I think. But hey, that's kind of what we know right now. I'm sure things will happen down the line that will update further, that kind of thing. So, you know, feel free to let me know how you guys feel. Maybe you think Heidi's in the right. Maybe you think Jared's in the right. Maybe you think the video basically did nothing for him. Or maybe you think it was exactly what he needed and it convinced you completely otherwise. So that's kind of it, guys. So let me know how you feel in the comments. Like the video if you like it, dislike if you disliked it. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.